Hello, everybody. It is Monday, which means it's Zen Money Monday, and I am so excited because today we're talking with Rachel and Kyle Wright, founders of the Wright Wellness Center. And if you don't know them, you should meet them because they are exceptionally fun and interesting people. And today we're going to talk about relationships in our businesses.
Yay.
Welcome, guys.
We're so excited to be here with you.
How you guys have done a ton in your business. You have moved out of the official professional therapeutic sphere. You have launched multiple podcasts. You have done multiple programs. How did you get into this, and how did you get into it together?
Oh man, I'll let you take this.
Well, like anything, it started with a need. Rachel had a successful therapy practice in San Francisco in the Bay Area. We're both California natives, and we were living there together, and it was great. I mean, she got her master's degree and got her therapy license and did all of her hours and started to practice, and yet she kept coming across the same issues that a lot of couples would come to her thinking they needed traditional therapy, which is kind of like a sledgehammer in terms of treatment for your relationship. And turns out a lot of couples needed basic communication skills, not a sledgehammer. They needed to hang a painting, not break down a wall.
Yeah, and it was kind of through coming home and discussing that with Kyle that he helped me see that, because, you know, you can't read the label from inside the bottle. So I'm in there and I'm like, why is everyone coming in with the same issues over and over again? And Kyle's like, well, where else would they go?
Yeah.
And then that's when we both had this, there's nothing out there between buying a book and going to therapy. Mm-hmm. And so eventually, through many late night conversations and "are you freaking kidding me" comments, we kind of decided together to make the jump and so rewind like 5 years before that, we met working in restaurants and we were corporate trainers together. So we both had this teaching experience. I was adjunct faculty at a university at the time. So we both kind of wanted to utilize those skills and combine them with the therapeutic stuff. And we were using the tools that I used with my clients in our own relationship. So it all really like came together and we took the crazy plunge into business together.
Yeah.
When you guys first started out, was there pushback? Were people intrigued? I mean, you're bringing something kind of brand new to a marketplace that has very traditional mentality around it and trying to break into something new. Were people excited?
Super excited,
yes,
actually.
Yes.
So we almost killed the business before. We almost destroyed our own business and killed Rachel's therapy practice overnight because it started out with, we figured give people basic communication tools. That way they can enter into therapy using the proper communication style. So we put together this like 20-page handout. We're like, we'll just give it to Rachel's new clients, see what they think, and we'll just, tailor our business based on that experience. And overnight, she lost like half her clients.
They were like, thanks for the packet. We don't need to come in now. Bye. And I was like, oh no.
I was like, I think we need to sell that instead of give it to people.
But so as much as people were excited to get the information, there were probably just as many people frustrated, concerned, and resistant to what we were doing. For many people, the questions were like, well, Kyle's not a therapist, so what is he going to do in the business? Mm-hmm. Or, well, you're a therapist, so you can't do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all of these things, right? And so it was through those objections and people's concerns that we were actually able to formulate what it is we do now. So I'm really grateful for them, but they still definitely happen. Like we were just talking before we hit record, we're launching this program called Ladies and Libidos, and Facebook is like, yeah, okay, good luck advertising it. So we come into problems all the time, but that's part of what we're trying to do is change the way that we think about relationships, sex, and mental health as a culture. So we knew it was going to come with pushback, and we're ready to still take it on.
What has it been like to build a business around this conversation? Because I would imagine coming from, I'm sure, as you said, you have a lot of pushback from the actual mental health community saying, hey, whoa, this isn't how we do this. Where do you see yourselves and where do you see the industry changing away from that more traditional model? And how has that affected, what you guys can do in your life from a business standpoint?
It's a really good question. I think every time we've received pushback, it's kind of shown us how bad the need is, because a lot of the resistance around what we do, using the internet as our medium for therapeutic coaching around relationships, it breaks the mold in a huge way. And every time we've gotten pushback, not every time, but the majority of times we've gotten pushback, because nothing's always, I know, see, testament to the work right here. Every time we've gotten pushback, it's shown us a new avenue for us.
Yeah.
Like, if people are really, really concerned about traditional therapy because it's super expensive, we have the flexibility to find a functional price structure for people. And that's something that we've been able to do.
Yeah, I think it's also, in terms of doing business, a lot of the issues that come from therapy are, it's okay, words coming out of my mouth. I have so many things to say, Liz. I'm like, whoa. In traditional therapy, you're not allowed legally to charge packages, right? Like, the way that the coaching world works is like, here, pay for these 6 months and we'll meet X amount of times. And in therapy, that's like the most unethical thing ever, because when somebody is diagnosable with a mental disorder, you don't want to like rope them in, right? And say, cool, you're going to have your anxiety disorder for 6 more months and we're going to work on it. So the way that we work is, because I have my training and my license, we screen every single client that comes through. And if they are diagnosable, I get to refer them to other therapists that I know and love around the country, which is great, because I feel like that I'm giving back to the community that really raised me. But if they don't have the criteria for like a true DSM diagnosis, they're actually better served by committing to a certain period of time. Because what often happens in therapy, and I think we can all, like anyone who's been to therapy, myself included, can totally attest to this, is we have the best intentions starting out. We're like, I'm gonna go every week. And then something comes up and you're like, oh, I'll miss it this week. And then, oh, I'll miss it next week. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I haven't gone to see my therapist for like 7 weeks.
Right.
But if you're prepaid for 6 months, you're going, you're
right.
showing up. So for people where there's no diagnosis, I have found that being able to use that different structure, both in our business and for them, has been way more mutually beneficial.
Additionally on that, it's when you're done with therapy, when do you stop? Is it up to you? Is it up to the therapist? Is a huge gap in the understanding of how that works. And just like a physical therapist would do, or a doctor, we're able to give treatment plans with definitive dates around it, how we can work with the couple to get them where they want to be within a definable amount of time, as long as they do the work. And that's not possible in the structure of traditional therapy.
Usually because there's a diagnosable
right.
situation going on. So you can't put a timeline on that, which makes total sense.
Yeah.
I love that you guys are able to come in and bridge this gap, because it is a much needed space. I think many of us who have worked with a mental health professional in the past, myself included, there is that big question around, how long is this going to take? If we're really in pain, we want it to be fast, but at the same time, that's not necessarily what we think is the best, is not necessarily the best. So to be able to reference a conversation around, do you actually need to go full bore or not, I think is really meaningful. I'm curious from your standpoint, did you guys, I know you're very drawn to the entrepreneurial space now, but given your background, did you intend to get into being business owners back in the day?
No. Kyle kind of was. I was already owning my own business, and I didn't identify as a business owner. I had my private practice, and people would be like, oh, so you own your own business? And I'm like, no, I have a private practice.
Which is so common to professional service providers. And it's not just in the health profession. The engineers that I know are like that. Accountants even, they don't consider themselves business owners. They're just providing a service and getting paid for it, which is an interesting distinction.
It's huge. And what's really messed up is, I went through the whole master's program, did all 3,000 licensing hours in California. That's the amount of hours it is to get licensed.
So many hours.
Which is a lot. It's the highest state, California, New York. And I did not have one class, not one workshop, not one class, not one anything about running a business, how to do taxes, how to set your fees, working with health insurance versus not working with health insurance. That all came as I was trying to stay afloat in this crazy ocean. So the schools as well, my education was amazing with my clinical training. They did not do anything to help me for business. And so that, yeah, like I never identified as that, even though I had it, but I do think that you always wanted that.
Well, mine came out of learning more about myself because I tried to go to college like 9 times, never really took. I just don't learn well in a traditional format. It's just, for many reasons. Anyway, different episode, but I didn't like working for other people. And both my parents had started their own businesses at various points. My dad's run his business for 35 years. And I've always seen that as something very desirable. And out of circumstance, it's something that I wanted to chase down. And it was very serendipitous that Rachel and I got to do that together.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think, back to what you were saying, Rachel, around the whole professional service training doesn't include business training being a window and a hole that we have. I've seen that as well. When I moved into the online space, I was coming from a professional service background as well. And it was just, I will help people with letters after their names because nobody learns this stuff. And they should. It's not hard. It's sort of the same of the fact that traditional AMA teaching, doctors in our world are given like an hour of nutritional training, right?
And no bedside manner.
Mm-hmm.
And, I have to give a shout out to the medical professionals in my life because my entire family is in AMA medicine. But I'm also very aware that there are holes in that kind of training. And so I think this is a really important conversation to have. So thank you for opening up that door. Yeah. Given all of that, what do you think the biggest hurdle has been for you guys to, 1, build a business together? Hello. And 2, get it to a point where financially you're feeling like you've got some wheels and things are happening the way you wanted to?
Oh man. Do you want to take it?
Yeah, it was good. Well, when it comes to running a business with your significant other, everything has to be intentional. When it's time to work, it's time to work and your coworkers. And that's the way it is. And it's difficult. It's so difficult to drop that for a little while and focus on the work and make sure you're still speaking to each other in a respectful manner and leaving the money, work stress out of your relationship. And then when work is over, going from sitting on the couch together, typing on our laptops, to sitting on the couch together, snuggling as a couple, that's a big transition too. So everything you do has to be really intentional because we use the tools all the time because if we're not intentional with it, we're human beings. We'll drop the ball. We'll blur the lines and I'll bring up bills before we're going to sleep, which is never a great way of going to bed. And it's, you got to really work on keeping those lines as drawn as possible. And it helps because talking about work on a date's no fun.
Yeah, I think that we are lucky in the sense of what we do is help couples with this in many ways. And so if we can't do it, then what business do we have doing what we do at all? So we have a lot of tools at our disposal that maybe other couples wouldn't necessarily have, which is very helpful and what we want to help give to other people. But it was definitely, I would say the biggest challenge is that we learn and implement at different paces. I'm kind of like the front row, ask all the questions, like type A overachiever student person, recovering perfectionist. And Kyle's like, that's cool, but like, does it apply to me? Like he's way more, it takes a little bit longer to decide if he wants to learn what's being presented. Mm-hmm. Where I'm like, I'll just learn it and then I'll decide if I'm going to use it. And he's like, why would I use that brain space if I'm not using it? And that was very hard at first before we realized those differences.
Oh yeah.
And then in terms of money, man, the financial part was really hard on 2 levels, both logistically because referencing the no business training. And then actually like our own stuff around money. And for me, coming from this paid per hour, I want to help everyone. I have a sliding scale. You know, I worked in the prison system for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I understand what it's like to literally have $10 in your bank account. And when you say I can't afford it, you're not having poor money mindset. You cannot afford it. Like, I get that. And so it was really difficult for me at first and for a while to move into this space of our clients can afford it. And if they can't, we can help refer them to somebody who can serve them, because there are people doing that. And that for me was such a hard, I mean, I felt like I was kicking people out of my metaphorical office, and it hurt my heart. So it really for us was twofold in terms of getting over that and really realizing that we could help more people if we were able to help the people who could invest in themselves. And when we implemented Profit First, that was the logistical thing that like just it shifted everything within a matter of like a month after we actually implemented. Yeah,
about a month and a half, maybe 2 for finally settle in. But it's absolutely. And when it comes to the money stuff around what we charge, you know, it's that weird mechanism in someone's brain where if you spend a certain amount of money on something, you're going to be more enthused around making sure you take advantage of it. And the decision to go from charging like $10 for something, because we wanted to give it out to the world. We're like, we're going to charge $10 for this because we care so much about getting it out there. Everyone signed up. No one watched. No one took advantage of it. And so it was kind of a weird thought process to realize that we had to charge more to actually help people, because that seems counterintuitive at first.
Yeah. It didn't feel right to do. And then I think the first time we did it, it was something, I remember what it was. We were charging $27 for something. And one of our coaches that we were working with was like, charge $127. And I was like, no,
that's crazy.
That's ridiculous. Like, it's not, no one's going to do that. And the people who bought it watched it within 1 week and got results, and we got testimonials from them. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. They got the change they wanted, and we were able to then make more money to then donate to causes that we want and help other people and give. Oh, I get it. But it's really hard when the mentality is if it's cheaper, it'll help more people.
Yeah.
And I think we're all trained that way, right? So socially, we're sort of trained that way, especially if you are in a business where you want to just help people. And I think many of our listeners can resonate with that, this concept of I just have good things to do in the world. Please just let me do them. And we feel like something that's low cost or free is going to make a difference. And there's this weird energy alchemy that happens around our monetary stuff that if we're not actually giving enough to, make a difference, and for everyone has that different level, right? Some people, the make a difference number is the $10, and some people it's $100,000,
right,
depending on where they're at. And it needs to be something that's going to have us show up for it. So I think that's a really beautiful explanation of how that all works, because it's a real thing.
Oh, yeah. And the funny thing is also for entrepreneurs, there's this up-level thing of when do you upgrade your equipment? Because the entrepreneur field, the entry level of entrepreneurship, it is kind of plagued with this hustle, minimalist mindset where when we started, we had one laptop for the two of us. And I was like, I'll use my gaming PC that I built a decade ago to help do stuff. It wasn't equipped. We didn't have the equipment to do it. And then it's like, the screen behind us we bought for our YouTube videos. And it was deciding to start spending money on ourselves or on the business so we could serve more effectively. And that took a long time for us to kind of get our heads around we need to spend X amount of money on a coaching program for us as entrepreneurs, or on high quality equipment so we can do YouTube videos, or nice microphones for our podcast. There's no like entrepreneur calendar marker like, okay, you've been doing it for 6 months, time to upgrade your equipment. It's really difficult to get your head around that for a while.
For sure.
Yeah.
And find that balance between what I'm always a little triggered by the word investing, but in this case, we'll use it in terms of like investing in our business or taking some of our profit and putting it back in the business to up level the business versus having money to put on our own table, to pay the mortgage, whatever it might be. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. So I appreciate you bringing that up as well, because it's always this question mark of, where, as I'm growing, how much money is it going to take to get to that next stage? And what does it need to be? Does it need to be microphones, or does it need to be putting myself in rooms for an event to talk to more people? These are all the plates that we're juggling as business owners all the time.
And it's overwhelming because everyone is telling you what is the best next thing to up level. You're like, no, you need this. No, you need to be in the room. No, you have to do this thing. And you're like, I don't know anything. I just want to help everyone.
Well, and stuff like that, you find people who have 100 followers on Instagram buying a $2,000 camera so they can film better video. You don't need that yet. There's that fine line of figuring out what works for you.
Yeah. How do you guys make those kinds of decisions, since it is the two of you in the business? I mean, I get to just choose, right? A lot of the times I don't even share with my husband what I have going on in the business, because it's just, we'll talk high level stuff, but I won't tell him like, I've chosen to go to this event, or I'm buying a new microphone, or whatever it might be. How do you guys handle that when it's both of you in the business?
So we use a tool. We actually created it. It was our first free opt-in.
Well, it was created for me to help juggle, because we were planning our wedding and opening our business and thinking about moving out of state all at the same time. And my brain does not handle more than one thing at a time. It's the reality of it. I can't really do more than one thing at a time. And so we created this program, this process, so I could function more effectively in our relationship and in our business. And it ended up being, I think, our best opt-in for the business.
Yeah, but talk about overwhelming. It's like 23 pages. It was our first opt-in, and we're like, this is amazing. We'll make something for free. And people were like, what is this beast of a document? But we still use it to this day. And that's actually when we have the conversations about those things. So there's a part in family meeting that goes over bills and investments and just your overall money picture in general. And during that time, we'll talk about up-leveling for both ourselves on a personal level and also for the business. And we do that meeting every week. I mean, we try. There are definitely weeks that we miss. Oh, yeah. We're human. Or we have an event happening or whatnot. But if everything goes as planned, we try to do it every week. And we sit down and one of us will just simply state like, hey, I think it's time for a new mixer. Right. This one is really acting up. Okay, how urgent is it? Is this like it's going to break tomorrow? Or is this like, it could last 6 more months? We kind of get a feel for what it is. And then
I would say when something breaks, we tend to look for a slightly better version of it.
Yeah, that too.
That's always it's always been a pretty good process for us in business.
Mm-hmm. And in life, I think.
Yeah, we trust each other. We really trust each other because of all the other stuff that we do. So if Kyle comes up to me and he's like, hey, I need to buy a new microphone for something, I'm like, okay. It's not like why, but because we have this foundation of trust and understanding.
I love that you guys try to talk about it weekly. That's something that I talk about in both of my books. And it's really easy to get into this pendulum swing around our finances, around the logistical decisions that we make. And so sometimes we're super hyper on top of it and like checking the bank account 4 times a day. And then sometimes we can go months without looking at it. And then we get panicky. Yep. In fact, I just had a conversation with somebody about that it just, especially if we don't identify as numbers nerds and things like that, it can be easy to move away from. So having something consistent like a money date is awesome.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And it feels good because then like you made the reference of bringing up bills right before we go to bed, then you can kind of jot that down on a note, right? And know that, Sunday afternoon, you're going to get the time to bring it up. So let's not talk about it right before we are trying to go to sleep on Wednesday.
Yeah. Yeah. I think many of us struggle with that, especially when you are your business. It's constantly in your head. And as much as we try to have there be a time and a place when we're sharing with a spouse, whether they're in our business or not, sometimes it just leaks out. Do you have any thoughts around kind of how to compartmentalize?
Yes. Don't try to do it by yourself. Keep a note on your phone.
Yeah.
Smartphones can be so annoying for so many different things, but the one thing that they're amazing at is holding our data and our information. So I have a note that is constantly, it's like a bold, the top title is like family meeting to talk about, or to talk about family meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything pops into my head, because it will inevitably right before we're going to bed, or right as we're leaving for date night, or, you know, whatever it is, I will just jot it down on there. And so then when we sit down to do our family meeting, I pull up that note, and then I'm not having to hold it in here, because it's not weak. As much as you can say, or anyone says like, oh, I can compartmentalize it. Like, can you? No, like really, you're just trying to stuff it. And that's not a good skill to get into the habit of either. So let it out, just have it in a safe space.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. I started doing that as well shortly after my son was born, when I realized that I just can't keep it all in there anymore, and that we shouldn't, because it doesn't feel good when it's all stuffed in there in a really uncomfortable way.
Yeah.
What do you guys think that you've done particularly well as you've been building your business?
I have an answer.
You have an answer?
Yeah, but if you...
I was going to say we have done a fairly good job of making sure that we are educating ourselves at an appropriate pace. When we have gone out to get a business educated, because we started out, the first thing we ever, I don't want to trick you, but the first time we ever invested in our business, it was, we bought into B School. And it gave us the semblance of a structure. You know, it's funny because we're a B2C business, and that's all B2B. It's what it's structured around. It helped us then. You know, a couple years down the line, we're not necessarily relying on information, and we're going up to the next level and the next level and the next level. We've been pretty good about figuring out where we need to go to get the education that's most applicable to what we're doing and what our goals are. And we're not trying to pay for a $100,000 a year mastermind, but we're also not in the like $10 a month, like pitch business ideas back and forth to each other groups. We've done a good job sort of incrementally increasing our education.
It's a really good answer. I was so not thinking that.
That's right.
That was really good.
That was really good. I want to hear your take on it though, Rachel. I want to hear what you were thinking.
Mine was going to be that we've stayed exactly who we are.
That's true. That's super true.
Like
that.
There is not a day where I am not cursing on social media or joking or singing show tunes. Like, I am a total kid at heart, theater nerd dork. And I think anybody who follows us on social media or works with us, they know that. And we've both not tried to change ourselves to fit the shoulds of this is what an entrepreneur looks like, or to get to the next level, you have to not do this, or you should be doing this. We've really just stayed us.
Yeah. And Aisha Moore, that's really good too. I didn't think about that, because the initial part of, you know, because Rachel and I met working in restaurants together. I was a bartender for about 9 years, almost 10 years. And for the first 3 years of our business, I wanted to just stuff that in a bag and never acknowledge it again. And turns out not addressing, you know, who I have been forming myself into throughout these years, that's a big deal. And by doing that, I really handicapped myself for a long time, which is why I ended up starting out my new podcast, Masculinity on the Rocks, to talk about guy stuff through the frame of bartending and kind of keep who I am along with me, because it turns out that's super helpful and I feel better.
Yeah, for sure. I think sometimes if we do it right, business building actually makes us more of our true selves if we can let it.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. I used to struggle with anxiety, like had a panic attack on our wedding day level, struggled with anxiety.
Nothing to do with me.
Yeah. It wasn't about him. Not at all, actually. Some people thought that, and it was very annoying. But it had nothing to do with Kyle. I have not felt anxious in over a year and a half, almost 2 years now. And that has so much to do with the personal work that I've had to do running this business with Kyle.
Yeah. It creates a crucible for all that stuff, right? I always
Absolutely.
talk about how, I mean, it's true for money stuff, but it's true for anything that we have, right? So we have those old habits and all that old anxiety, wherever it may live. And it comes and it gets into this really refined microscope. And we've either got to deal with it or we got to get out of the game.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
What has been most surprising for you guys in building this together, in working with couples, as a couple or individually?
Well, for me, the thing that I feel like this was surprising only for me, and that Rachel knew this the entire time, but it turns out the more honest and vulnerable you are around business and your struggles and who you are and where you came from and all the little things that make up who you are, people respond really well to that. And it's a common pitfall, I think, for entrepreneurs building their business to want to appear a certain way, to be polished, to not have the same vulnerabilities, to have overcome your demons and now you're fine, and ignore the fact that they are still right there inside your head or behind your back or wherever. It turns out that the fine line of vulnerability and honesty is it's a really, really healthy balance for you as an individual and for your business.
That was a good answer.
Thanks.
Do you have anything you want to add, Rachel?
Surprising. People are willing to do a lot to stay in their own stuff and not get help. It's really amazing to me when you can provide somebody with a solution from free to whatever price, doesn't matter, and they don't want help. And that's been the most surprising thing to me, is like that it's not build it and they'll come. Like no one's coming. They need to not only know you're there, but then they have to know why they want to go. And
gotta kind of shove them in there too.
That's a very interesting thing.
Yeah, I have these offline conversations around, why is it so hard? Everyone clearly wants to get their money shit together. Why are we not just getting your money shit together? And I would imagine it's exactly the same for you guys.
Yep.
It's easy to complain. It's really hard to change something.
Yep. So that's definitely been the most surprising thing, is when you make something as accessible as, you can do this from home in your pajamas and you have the budget for it and you don't even have to leave. You have all the tools that you need. And they're like, but this and this and this and that. It's like, wow, I did not realize how willing and amazing we are as humans of coming up with excuses to keep ourselves in the same spot.
Yeah, I call that bear brain, which I think you guys have heard me use before. What do you do as a business owner? Like, how do you approach that, given that dynamic in your offerings?
So we work it through from a therapeutic perspective.
Of course.
Yeah, obviously. So I tend to want to understand, like, I treat our sales calls, I guess what other people call sales calls, I still have them called phone consultations. They're still in my phone. Because to me, it's not a sales call. That is not what we're doing. It's far too personal.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to sell what we do to every person that I talk to. In fact, most of the time, it's not a good fit. And whether or not the person on the phone actually believes me or not when I tell them that is a different story. But if there's resistance there, we work through the emotional component. So what is coming up for you? Okay, I'm scared. What are you scared of? Like, we really go down and try to turn that phone consultation into what is holding you back, and letting that person figure it out and then sit with that and know that whenever they're ready to work on what we just identified, that's something that we can do too.
Yeah.
Awesome. I have 3 more questions for you.
Okay, cool.
The first one is, do you guys have a pretty clear separation in terms of who does what within the business when you're working on your business instead of in your business? Or is it a hodgepodge? I just feel like you guys are really on top of stuff, so I'm curious how you delineate that.
To me, it's a great question, because I'm like, how well do we define who does
really
what?
Well now.
Really well. I would say that there's like 2 camps, right? One is really stuff that I'm great at doing, and there's one that Rachel's really great at doing, and we kind of stay in our own little places. And then there's this middle area in which it's a little messy, but that is because we're usually creating something new, we're trying to tweak something, and we need both of our inputs, regardless of who's, better at designing something or writing something or editing something. we'll usually have both of our input on something. So we each have our own little situations.
And luckily now we have a team that is helping
Helps
us.
a lot.
So our amazing online business manager will be like, neither of you are doing this. This is not your job. And we're like, okay. So that's
Right. I forgot I was paying you for that. Great.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So she really helps with that. And, you know, we have an amazing designer now. So like, I'm not on Canva at 1 a.m. trying to like move letters to the, so like, it's become more and more clear as we have people in those roles. But before at the beginning, it was not. I would say
I think it's common for most people.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
But the stress level definitely went down once we figured out what
Right.
was in each camp.
Right.
Oh, I love that. I'm glad to hear that because as we grow, the easier it is to get more clear on all of that and
for
actually
sure.
write job descriptions or not, just to have that within your own head is the most important part, I think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Big time.
All right. There's a question that I ask everybody. And I guess I would love to hear from both of you on this. But the question is, what does Zen money mean to you?
Hmm.
Well, do you want to go first?
I don't care. It's fine.
Um,
We made the stupid sound
I
at
know,
the
we're
same
like,
time.
Good question, Liz.
God.
It's an introspective sound. What immediately pops into my head is a very stress-free flow. For some reason, I equate like water to Zen. I don't know why. I think that I always love the Bruce Lee quote around water, where it's like, be like water. Water can be calm. It can do whatever it needs. It can also crash and destroy. I always misquote it, but it's the general concept that I love. I would say Zen money to me sounds like a calm and stress-free flow of money into your business and into your life where you'd like it to be, or where it needs to be, actually.
For me, what came up was peaceful money. So just in general, like peaceful in how it comes in, peaceful in how it goes out, peaceful as to where it goes. The whole process is just peaceful.
Yeah.
I love both of those answers. That's what I think Zen money should be too. All right. I don't want to take up too much more of your very busy time. If our listeners could get one takeaway from you guys in your area of expertise, right, as relationship specialists who are also building a business, what would you want people to know?
Oh man. Okay, I know mine.
Good.
All right. Don't be so hard on yourself. I tell my clients all the time that if you talked to other people in your life the way that you talk to yourself, you would have no friends. So start treating yourself, at least, let's start at the bare minimum. Treat yourself how you would a stranger on the street, because you are currently treating that person nicer than you are yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. That's good.
So just give yourself a break. You're never going to know everything. You don't need to know everything. Just one foot in front of the other, one step at a time. And it's okay to ask for help.
That's good. Make friends with being uncomfortable. You're going to be uncomfortable always.
That's a good
Anything good. I don't love using absolutes because nothing is always, like we always talked about.
Like we always talk about.
Nothing is always. But not many things that are amazing come very easily in this world. And using the butterfly metaphor, a moth's got, caterpillar's got to make its cocoon, it's got to break out, there has to be struggle, there has to be challenge for anything great to happen. And every time you think you've overcome a big challenge, there's a larger challenge waiting around the corner, because then you're ready to do the next thing. And being able to sit in that feeling and just know that something good is happening and it's uncomfortable now, but it will pass, then the next thing is there. That's been the most helpful thing for me going through it. And I think a lot of people could resonate with that.
Definitely. I love both of those answers so much. I'm so excited. And I know that you guys have so much to share, especially with our listener community. And I know we have something to share with them that they can take away and implement right away. Is that correct?
Yes. So I'm actually really excited. It came up while we were talking. The family meeting is what we're sharing with all of your incredible listeners. So you can grab it for free. It's a beast of a document, like we said.
With good reason.
Yes, with good reason. And it really changed everything for us and every couple that we have seen implement it. There's 2 versions. There's one for couples and then there's one for families. So if you want to include the kiddos in the conversation, it's a different format than not including the kiddos. So really something for everybody.
Right. It's going to be challenging at first. It's definitely going to be difficult to get through right away because it's big and it's detailed, and you can kind of figure out how it works best for you. But the thing I like to remind everybody who starts using the family meeting is that on the other end of it, there's more time for dates, more consistently. You're taking better care of yourself. You're planning big trips, big excursions, big times to be with your friends and family. You're taking better care of your relationship, your money, and your life together.
And who can ask for more than that? I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. We will definitely post a link in the show notes as well. But in the meantime, if they just go to your website, can they find it there?
Yep. Okay. It's there. Everything is on there.
Okay. So it's Wright, WRIGHT wellness.com.
Wright Wellness Center.
WrightWellnessCenter.com. Perfect. So we will put a link to that. Thank you so much, guys. I'm so excited. We'll have to have you back on in the future, and we'll dig further into this conversation around how to build businesses and relationships all at the same time.
Thank you so much.
Love it. Thanks for having us.